Hello and welcome to Move the Line Prop Drop Show presented by Thrive Fantasy. I'm Ryan Noonan and we'll be here every week in the space every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern to talk about the best way and the most profitable way to bet on NFL football, and that is player props. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss a show. Jump in the chat and let us know what your favorite prop is for the week. If you're on the fence something, you want to get our thoughts on it, or you want to harass us on our picks, we'll hopefully get to those as many as we can in the hour that we have at the end of the show. Joining me here as always, Connor Allen. Connor, how are we doing on Friday?
Pretty good, man. Week 4 is finally here. I feel good about where we're at now with getting a little bit of data in our projections, a little bit more. We're using adjusted fantasy points allowed now. That's kind of mixed in. So it's, I think, a big upgrade for our rankings and projections. So feeling good.
That helps. Also joining us in the space every week, the man behind the Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo, how are we doing today?
I'm good. I hurt my right leg, so I've been doing like physiotherapy for like my entire right side of my body. Turns out, like when you tear your calf multiple times, like your right hamstring weak, right glute super weak, and it's horrible. Glute and leg exercises are the absolute nut low.
How did you tear your calf?
Running.
Multiple times? Running? Oh, yeah, no good. I'm like the least flexible person ever too. So like, I feel like even I'm trying to like doing any yoga or stretching, like these hammies and glutes are rough. I can't imagine having like, because it all links. Like when you jack up the calf, it's all going to be bad news. So no thanks. Did you just re-aggravate it recently?
Yeah, I tore it again like 2.5 months ago. And just the worst because, you know, it's football season. I got to run, stay slim. And now I got to find like alternative methods of cardio. And I mean, running's bad enough. The other ones are way worse.
Jeez. Just going to, drink your athletic greens and eat your magic spoon and smoke some cigs. And you don't even need any real food.
That's good. Yeah. I can polish down some vodka with it. Very low cal. And, I'm off to the races.
You don't have a vodka deal though. I can't help you tee up a vodka deal.
Well, maybe someone's watching who has a vodka company who wants to sponsor the show, and I'm good to go. I'll drink it on air. Who cares?
At the PME on Twitter, if you need to jump in his DMs there, any vodka companies. But a reminder that we have 2 episodes of Move the Line each week, both available to stream live here on YouTube, also available in podcast form as well, wherever you consume podcasts. In addition to this prop drop, we also have our game previews on Thursday nights. We go live there 7 p.m. Eastern leading into Thursday night football. Connor, John Daigle, and myself. Last night's show is in the books there. You can check that out. We have 9 bets in there for you for week 4. All right, before we jump into our props for this week, I want to tell you about our friends over at Thrive Fantasy. Another great opportunity at Thrive to make some money. If you're not familiar with Thrive, it's a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. Game is pretty simple. They have 20 props listed. You choose your favorite 10 to build a lineup. Each prop is assigned a fantasy value for both the over and under based on how likely it is to hit. You hit the most props, accumulate the most points, and you can win a share of the prize pool. They have a $25 GPP again this week. There are 5,500 spots. And as of about an hour ago, there are less than 150 people in that tournament. So they are paying out the top 1,100 spots. And right now, you basically are in, and you're going to make, a couple $1,000 just by signing up this week. So it always gets closer to filling. But here we are again. Let's help our friends out over there. Use the promo code PropDrop when you sign up today. It's a solid bonus. You're going to receive an instant 100% first deposit match up to $250. So download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or the Play Store by visiting their websites or thrivefantasy.com. Again, very generous bonus compared to others in the space too. So check it out. Get in there. Overlay will be there just by getting in the contest, and we'll talk about some of our favorite Thrive props later in the show. All right, week 4. Live lines available for you to bet right now. No stale lines. Our goal is to do our best to make sure you can get the same line or price or as close as possible. Connor, you can get us kicked off here with your first prop for week 4.
Yeah, my first prop for week 4 is Nico Collins. I'm taking under 3.5 receptions. You're able to find this at plus money at different shops. I like it up to minus 115. I think that is fine as well still. Just looking at kind of his usage here, has only seen 2, 4, and then 2 receptions in 3 games, and that's on 3, 9, and 4 targets. I mean, I think there's a good chance here against the Chargers. He only sees 3 to 4 targets. I know that they're a little bit banged up defensively, but I still think that with how Davis Mills has played, which is terribly, I think that there's no reason this should be plus money. And even then, I think that this should probably be closer to 2.5 than a 3.5. So I lean under here. I like that as a play at 3.5.
Pat, any thoughts on that? I think fading what's going on in that Texans passing game is probably a pretty EV spot.
Yeah, I really have no feeling on this. I was not thinking Nico Collins out of the gate. I'm not going to lie to you. When it comes down to it, I pay so little attention to what the Texans are doing outside of Cooks and Pierce that if you got to lean on this one, that sounds right. That sounds like a lot for Nico Collins and what I expect this game to be. I think this is like a 17-10, 17-14 type game. So that actually tracks for me. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think it pops out pretty well for us too. He just had a spike week in week 2, but yeah, I mean, when you're looking at, sub 75% route run, like you need some splash plays there. So yeah, I like that look at all. Considered hugging it in our Discord, which is something that we do to basically show that we're both on it as a confirmation bias and helps the subs there. So good look there. It's a Connor Allen play for sure. Hitching yourself to unders that are tied to bad quarterbacks, probably a pretty EV spot to be. Pat, first one for you, buddy.
First one for me. I'm going to go to the London game, shockingly enough. It's Justin Jefferson rebound week. We have his yardage total down about 10 yards from where it was 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And he's been pressed up against 2 pretty good corners the last 2 weeks. And you might say, hey, Marshawn Lattimore, he's going to take care of Justin Jefferson. I have always found that Marshawn Lattimore is one who matches up well on big-bodied, physical, not necessarily the
You got a frozen Mayo.
Is that
at the moment, which I really find surprising. Something that coming into the year, I would have expected them to have a fantastic pass rush. You're probably going to see a lot of zone coverage, weirdly enough, coming from the Saints this week over in London. And obviously we know what their offense is looking like at the moment. They have everyone out. That's not great. So maybe this flips into a game where they would try to run the ball a ton. It's still very difficult to run on the New Orleans Saints. So I think this is a get right spot for Jefferson. I think he goes absolutely ham in this game, and it's down to 84.5, minus 110 at DraftKings Sportsbook. So sometimes, I try to find the biggest losers on the board, try to bet an under over, just trying to get one catch out of them. Not in this one. This really feels like a 7 for 135 and 2 touchdowns type game for Justin Jefferson. So I'll take the one that I like the best, and it's the over 84.5 receiving prop.
We got him in 96. We talked about this actually in our Discord earlier in the week when this one first popped, because these, early Sunday morning games pop earlier than others, and did some digging too. Like Lattimore is actually not even shadowing that much either. So like 40% shadow rate so far this season. So he probably sees, more Jefferson than normal here, but I kind of agree with Pat. Like he is someone who's profiled better against bigger body receivers. Even last week, when he shadowed against Carolina, it was Robbie more than it was DJ Moore. So maybe that's something that they shadow Thielen here with Lattimore, and maybe try to do some bracket coverage with Justin Jefferson against the lesser of the guys there. Connor, any thoughts on JJ?
No, I think you guys brought up some good points, but I do think that you could also hit some alts here, like some sprinkles on like 100 plus, 110 plus, like 120, like plus money here, because he's going to blow up one of these weeks. And as you mentioned, it's not like he's going to see a ton of Lattimore. I think that this could be a good spot for him to actually just go off in a spot where it seems like his price is coming down, as you mentioned at the top.
Yeah, like that look. All right, number one for me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, under 9.5 carries. Hit this at minus 110 on DraftKings. It's moved to minus 120 within the last half an hour or so. Still think it's a fair play there. 3 weeks, and he has not topped 8 carries in a game, and he's coming off of a 7-carry, 0-yard performance against the Colts. And more importantly, he lost base down work last week too, which is really kind of his bread and butter. So if he's going to be losing base snaps to Jerick McKinnon and even Isaiah Pacheco, who got a bunch of carries in week 1, but that was when that game was all baked away. Last week was obviously not. I mean, they lost on the road. That game was in what you would consider neutral script all game, and Pacheco finally got in there too. So I just think this is a rough spot. They obviously are not very bullish in him long term, which is why we had kind of the drumbeat on Pacheco all off season. They re-signed McKinnon, and if McKinnon is going to start to supplement him, not just on passing downs but on base work too, 9.5 carries against a really stout Tampa Bay front. I don't expect him to like get this hot hand where they're going to start to pound him here. So I think they're going to have to pass to move the ball. I actually kind of like the spot for Tampa. So again, if it's going to be negative game script as well, I just kind of like the spot and bang it under on CEH. Connor, I know you're on it too. Pat, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about under 3 receptions as well. He's terrible. Stop using him. And I think they're going to find that out this week.
Yeah. Love that too. Again, like he struggled against Indy, and Indy's good. Tampa's good too. So I can't see a scenario where they're all of a sudden going to be like, all right, we're going to pound, even if they get up, right? If it's a pro Kansas City script, Connor, we're still not going to see massive workload for CEH.
Yeah, I mean, we were eyeing under 35.5 rushing yards, but that's just so low that, like, I mean, some fluke play where he ends up breaking one can bust that, but I just don't see him getting 10 plus carries in this spot. I think it's almost kind of more similar to like what we saw from like Chase Edmonds last night, where, you know, in an uncertain situation where he hasn't been playing that well, saw 27% of the snaps last night. I mean, we could see CEH start to see his snaps being decreased too, because again, went 7 carries for 0 yards against a tough matchup, but still, like, they might be starting to like try some other stuff out pretty soon.
Yeah. Back to you, buddy. Pick number 2.
Yeah. My second pick is Josh Jacobs. I'm taking the under here on 2.5 receptions. I know that he just had a great game, but that was in a different script here. They were passing basically the entire game. Carr attempted 44 passes, and that led to Jacobs being on the field for a lot more pass plays than normal. Still, despite that, only played on 14.3% of the team's third down. So he's still not the clear pass catching back. He's just was used in that sense because they were passing basically the entire game. Now, I like the Broncos to beat the Raiders here, but that's a little bit contrarian. The Raiders right now 2.5-point favorites. I think that here Jacobs only seeing 1 target in each of the first 2 games, and I think that's well within his range of outcomes here. He's probably in the 1, 2, or 3 target range, barring the Raiders just going massively pass heavy here. So he did run more routes, but I think that was more of a result of the Raiders having to pass more on early down. So I still like this under here as long as the Broncos don't jump out to like a 14 or 17-0 lead and force the Raiders to pass basically every play.
Yeah, I still saw Brandon Bolden basically 93% of the long down and distance snaps. So yeah, we saw a decent workload in the passing game from Jacobs on first and second down. So, Pat, any thoughts on this one?
Fade Jacobs always is usually my goal with anything.
Yeah.
Just you want him to be so much better than he is, and you want this where it's like, oh, he's out there so much. This is the role that he should have. It's like, no, he doesn't have that. And you mentioned the key name, like Brandon Bolden is healthy, and if they have to pass in this spot, and I don't think they want to pass all that much, to tell you the truth, against the Broncos. I mean, not that they have a poor run defense, they have an excellent pass defense, and just kind of keep it on the ground and let Jacobs get his 2 yards per carry, and that'll be their game plan.
Yeah. My only concern too is I'm kind of bullish on Denver in this spot, especially if we do see today if Hunter Renfrow is ruled out. But again, maybe that ends up signaling even more Brandon Bolden, even Amir Abdullah, who didn't see a snap last week, but 21% of the snaps in week 2. I think Pat's motto of just taking a hard line of always fading Josh Jacobs is probably plus EV long term. Pat, how about number 2 for you, bud?
Number 2 for me is the biggest discrepancy I have between my projections and what the actual over-under is in terms of yardage this week. It's over Derrick Henry, 70.5 rushing yards against the Colts. I feel like this is being baked in now. Yes, the Colts have a great run defense. They had a great run defense last year as well. And Henry almost still got to this number in the game he got hurt in against the Colts, because all they do when Tennessee has had a ton of success against Indianapolis, they turn around, they hand it to Derrick Henry. You'll get this past 5 games against the Colts, 149, 103, 178, 113, but the carries 28, 28, 27, 26. I mean, this is their game plan to beat this team, a team that they've had a lot of success with. Obviously, Derrick Henry looked a lot better last week, and the fact that the Colts are just stymied the Chiefs on the ground, that's great and everything, but stopping Derrick Henry is not like stopping Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. This one just seems way off to me by a good 38, 35 yards. So strong over on Derrick Henry here.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, Connor. Like, I know our process is similar. We're going through some of the stuff on Monday and Tuesday and, trying to break down some of these games. I know, I'll highlight and make some lists and some thoughts around what my initial leans are going to be. And I had Derrick Henry under for sure as a big lean. And then the 71.5 came out and it was like, holy shit, it's like 20 yards lower than anything he's been posted at all season. He's been like 85, 90 yards in the first 3 weeks. So like they're really baking in the Colts run defense here and probably too much. Like we joked, like I didn't make the play, but I said, now this is like a Henry over. Feels like a great play. And our projections probably align similar to what Pat's are there, way over this number. And this is a limited passing game. We know they're like Pat listed all those carry numbers. I don't really know how they get away from handing in the ball a ton, even if it's not efficient work. 70, it's just not a lot, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, like we should pencil him in for around 20 carries. I mean, I don't know what you have projected for, Pat, but like he's going to be getting 20 carries if they want to win, and it would take him just really, really struggling to not get to 71. So it's the lowest Derrick Henry number that I've seen in recent memory. I mean, I don't even know, 3 years or so at least.
Yeah, I haven't projected at 22 carries. So 22 carries at 3.5 yards per carry, you still have like 10 yards to work with.
Yeah, it's shocking to see them adjust that much, especially off of a guy's baseline. And again, and not knowing everything that's fed into making the prop, but historical success against the team, all those things. We're at 21.5 for 85.7 yards on Derrick Henry. So yeah, we're leaning there too. Number 2 for me. Let me see what I got here. We're going Daniel Jones over 31.5 rushing yards. This is minus 110 on DraftKings. Attacking rushing quarterbacks against really man-heavy defenses, I think, is a plus EV proposition. And I don't think it's necessarily accounted for by bookmakers. And it's been pretty clear if you look at how it's played out so far this season for Daniel Jones, who's running a ton. Like they talked about it this season in the offseason, like they wanted to use his legs. He's a pretty limited passer from the pocket, and getting him outside the pocket to run and create plays makes a lot of sense. 6 carries, 10 carries, and 9 carries in the first 3 games. So the attempts are there against the Tennessee Titans in week 1, who only played 6 snaps of man all game. He went for 6 for 25. Carolina barely plays any man, played 2 snaps of man in week 2. A lot of attempts, 10 carries, but just 21 yards for Daniel Jones. Last week against Dallas, who played 18 snaps of man, Jones went for 9 carries and 79 yards. The Bears play man at the league's 3rd highest rate. It's kind of the handicap for me here. I think Jones can break a couple, but again, if he's going to be, kind of flirting with 8 to 10 carries here, kind of like the spot, especially with the limited pass catcher. So DJ over 31.5 for me. What do you think, Pat?
I was looking at his passing attempts over as well. I believe it's at 27.5 right now, and I haven't projected it way more than that. The issue is, when I think about the projections, I think I would lean more towards the rushing like you do, solely because of the opponent that they're facing. When they're only going to face max 20 pass attempts, and you're probably, you want to throw the ball, but you're probably safer running the ball with Barkley and yourself just to limit the mistakes. This feels like a really quick game to me. And in that circumstance, I'm always going to go towards the rushing rather than the passing if I do want to take an over.
Yeah, it looks like it moved to 32.5 in most spots, and I'd still play that. Connor, I know we've talked about it. Any DJ thoughts?
Man, I just keep going back and forth with the rushing stuff, like rushing quarterback overs. I think that we talked about it earlier. I like the alts for this versus just like the regular 32.5 getting plus money. I know I'm a little bit of a sucker there for that, but I just think it's super volatile. Like he breaks, all it takes is 1 or 2 and he's way over this number. But like how much volume do we expect? I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I like it. I lean over for sure, especially for all the points you laid out. I just think I'd probably prefer to lean into a little bit more of the, higher variance plays at plus money.
Well, if you want higher variance, you can take a same game parlay, because we like Justin Jefferson we like Justin Fields to run a crap ton in this game too, because the Giants also play a ton of man defense. I think 6th or 7th in the league. So we know that they want to run the football and they cannot pass the ball. They refuse to even do so. So if you want to take Connor's side, get some alts. If you want to get both of these guys to top 50 yards on the ground, that's 9-1 on DraftKings. You want to set a little same game parlay, sprinkle that. I have no problem with that. To Pat's point, this is one of those games that, like, 2:30 Eastern or Central Time, this game's going to be over. It's going to be the first game it's done. You're like, the Bears Giants is over. It's like, yeah, they just all ran the ball every single time, and tick tick tick, and there he goes. So, all right, number or back to you, Connor, right, for number 3.
Yep. Staying in the same game as I was last time, I'm going to go with Derek Carr under 270 passing yards here. For me, this just struck me as like way too high compared to what it should be here. Raiders so far have played against Cardinals, who rank 30th in pass DVOA, Titans, who rank 26th in pass DVOA, and Chargers, who rank 20th right now. Despite playing those teams, he's only averaged 283 passing yards. Broncos so far have been really strong again against weak opponents, but 175, 195, and 211 passing yards. Right now, 4th in DVOA, which adjusts for opponent as well. Broncos games so far also have been really slow paced, averaging the 5th fewest combined plays. Raiders are playing right now at the 8th slowest pace. As we mentioned earlier, I think that they actually probably skew a little bit even more runny heavy here than pass heavy. And I don't think that either team, or at least I don't think that the Raiders have a ton of success offensively. So we have projected for around 260. I like under here at 270. And I think that the floor here is super low, like in like the 215, 220 range. If unless things get out of hand. But I expect this to be kind of a close, lower scoring game here, at least for the Raiders.
Yeah, Pat, what do you think here?
I love this. And I think that people are really underrating the Broncos in general. I agreed with you earlier. Like, I like the +2.5. I like them to win that game. Yep. And it's mainly because when you take offense, defense on both sides of the ball, like clearly the best thing in this game is the Broncos defense. Yeah, the Raiders offense might be better right now, at least, than what Denver looks like. That's, closer to a wash than lining it up on the other end. And just with how weak the Raiders offensive line is so far, and now the pass rush that the Broncos are generating, like, I just feel like they want to run the ball. That's their best path in this game to creating an advantage, is if Denver's going to blitz or bring the house at you, just run it with Josh Jacobs. That's fine. Kill the clock a bit. Don't let Derek Carr make any mistakes. Don't let him take any hits. And with the way that their corners have been playing, like, those deep shots just aren't going to be there. So Carr might dink and dunk you to death, but getting over that number is going to be tough.
And harder to dink and dunk too if Renfro's out. Patrick Surtain's been awesome. They're actually, I think, like 2nd in DVOA defensively against wide receiver ones. So I don't expect him to shut down Devontae Adams, but it could be a quieter Adams day too. And again, they obviously need him. There's a squeaky wheel narrative there where you think maybe he's going to have a bounce back game because it's been quiet for 2. I'm dying for a Raiders team total to get to 24 so I can hit the under on that. It's a juiced 23.5 everywhere. We're like getting there a little bit, maybe. So I would love to take a Raiders under 24, and this kind of aligns perfectly with that. So good luck. Pat, how about number 2 or 3 for you, buddy?
Number 3 for me is actually in the Colts, and I had Henry on one side. Maybe just same game parlay these ones together. You go Henry over 70.5 rushing yards. Then you take a look at the other side of the ball, and Michael Pittman, 69.5 is what he's coming in at right now. And again, that's another one that's just a huge discrepancy for me in terms of what I have him projected out for, what he normally produces on a week-to-week basis, that it struck me as super odd that it would be so low. I have him projected at around 85 yards this week, almost 7 catches. Like, who else are the Colts throwing to? Granted, they're 3.5-point favorites. I don't think they should be. I think this game is just kind of back and forth the entire way. Yeah, if Henry runs the ball 24 times, it shrinks the game down. But when you own like 35% of a team's reception tree and the share of targets that are coming from Matt Ryan, even if he only throws the ball 28 times, it's a pretty easy sprint to this number. I mean, it doesn't even take a big one to happen. This is just all dink and dunk type stuff on the 7, 6, 7, 8 catches that Pittman's going to get. You throw in like a 35-yarder in the mix, it's an easy over.
Confirmation bias, Connor. I gave this out to subscribers, 66.5. I keep climbing because I'm with you. Like, our numbers are way up in the mid 80s as well. Like, there's just no one else, right? It's just a bunch of Jags and Michael Pittman, and Christian Fulton's probably out for Tennessee. They are 31st against wide receiver 1 so far this year, 32nd against wide receiver 2s. However you want to classify it, they're really bad against pass catchers, and it's such a narrow target tree, as Pat said, for the Colts. All in on Pittman. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it play out without Pittman before. Like, it's just a complete disaster. Like, he is the focal point and the only guy in their offense who can get open, basically. Like, that's it. And so without him, I mean, the passing game sputtered. I think that he continues to crush. I mean, we were bullish on him on the preseason. I think that this is it's all been confirmation bias since then with the missed game and then every other game playing well. So yeah, I like the over here as well.
Yeah, slid right back into the normal workload. Nothing that would make you think like, oh, he was limited coming back after what he missing week 2. Nope, right back in 98% of the snaps. He's an alpha, so he'll crush. Super sexy one for me here. Number 3, I'm going to go Zach Ertz over 4.5 receptions. This is plus money, plus 105 on DraftKings. We hit this successfully last week. Same song and dance, really. The only matchup, the matchup in the path to targets, I think, has improved. You have AJ Green out. Andy Isabella, he is going to step in. He'll be in there in 3 receiver sets. And throughout his career, there's been a lot of hope for Andy Isabella, but he's just not proven to be a guy that's been a target earner. And since returning after being a little bit limited in week 1, Ertz is running around on 90% of Kyler's drop back, 20% target share. Like as I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about Daniel Jones, Carolina basically plays exclusively zone, which is a really nice spot for a tight end. Actually really bad against tight ends so far this season as well. I just think Ertz gets peppered with really low A-dot targets, would never chase a yardage over on Ertz, but plus money at 4.5 receptions is a look I'm very comfortable in this matchup. So give me Ertz over 4.5. What do you think, Pat?
I like it. I like everything Ertz. Touchdown scorer Ertz. Just when you think about the way that Carolina is constructed to stop you, is they're going to take away your best receiving threats. Like it's Ertz or Dortch really for me in this game. It just feels like, I know you say they don't play a ton of man coverage, but they do bracket towards certain players and they can leave JC Horn up on Marquise Brown and shade his side of the field as long as they want. Just take him out of the game. What do you got left? Well, you have Rondell Moore, who might play. You have Isabella. You have Eno Benjamin maybe catching passes. Maybe they'll throw it to James Conner, but realistically, it's Dortch and it's Ertz. In between them, they're probably going to have like 25 targets.
The size of a JV basketball team, too. Like everyone's like 5'6" and under. It's a very interesting lineup. So, all right, we made it around 3. We got one more to go. If you're hanging out with us, jump in the chat. Let us know your thoughts. Anything you're considering this week. We will get to anything that we have with time at the end. Connor, last one for you.
Yeah, my last one that it's playing a little bit close to the chest here, but I like J.K. Dobbins. I like him to go under his rushing total right now. It's still at 38.5. I mean, so if we look at the last game, he's coming back from, an ACL, LCL, heading into the game. Harbaugh basically said, let's see how it goes. We'll roll with the hot hand. So if we look at how that game went, Dobbins rushed the ball the first 4 times before Justice Hill got involved at all. The second half, the first drive, Dobbins and Hill rotated carries, 1 for Dobbins, 2 for Hill, 1 for Dobbins. Then from there on out, Justice Hill started and played the entirety of the next 4 drives of the second half. I mean, this game was still close. It's not like it was out of hand at the time. And then Dobbins didn't see his next touch till 4:44 left in the game. He popped up on the injury report with a chest injury. He was a full participant, so it looks like he's fine. But now he faces the Bills' run defense, 7th in run DEPA per play, 1st in explosive run rate allowed, despite multiple absences on the defensive line. Last week, held Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds to combined 32 yards on 14 carries. So, I mean, there's workload concerns, some matchup concerns, efficiency concerns. I think the under here is the play. I think the only way this loses is if he busts a long one or for some reason decide to give him like 10 plus carries. But I mean, Justice Hill just straight up 1-for-1 outplayed him last week, coming off a torn Achilles. So I'm willing to fade Dobbins in this spot.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
60. Okay.
Just can we even guarantee him 5 touches in this game?
Right.
It feels like
shaky.
it feels like one of those easy unders every week until it doesn't hit, and then all bets are off. But I feel like that's when you want to ride right now until we see him get worked up. It's probably gonna be like 4 weeks until he's at a full workload, and this isn't the game for it.
Yeah, Connor, I saw a move on FanDuel a little bit. I don't know if that's where you hit it. Is there a kind of a floor for where you would continue to chase it to?
I think I put 35.5.
Okay. Still 35.5 on FanDuel.
Yeah, 38.5 on DK, 38.5 on MGM right now. I think that's still a good look.
Yeah. All right, I like it. Pat, last one for you.
Okay, so I have a bunch of them here written down.
Let's go.
And I want to see where your guys' heads are at with this one. I also want to take a look at this, Zach. What do you think the Jets' offense looks like with Zach Wilson and not Joe Flacco? Maybe I'll just throw that out as a very broad question. Do they pass at the same rate? Are they playing as fast, or do they slow it down a bit?
I think they're inefficient. So I took Jets team total under 19.5. As far as like splits, I would imagine it's probably pretty similar. Again, I think there's less teeth with the Steelers pass rush here, but I wouldn't imagine anything from how the plays get distributed that's massively different. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with fading Zach Wilson.
Yeah. It's not that. It's like the over-under completions and attempts. Like they have him back down at like 33.5, 19 completions. The overs on those kind of sound right based on how this game should go, doesn't it?
The Zach Wilson over attempts is in our prop tool one of the best values.
Yeah, it's popping.
Yeah.
Same as mine.
Yeah.
But like, do you trust that? Because that's probably based off Flacco numbers.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't trust it.
Yeah, it's the two strongest leans this week are Zach Wilson over pass completions, Zach Wilson over pass attempts, both hit at, according to my numbers, at over a 90% clip.
If you like it, because he is such a tendency to be a downfield passer so far in his career, I would probably go with attempts more so than completions because I think maybe he's less efficient. But that would be my lean if I was going to take one of them.
You see, I also have Zach Wilson over 205.5 passing yards, over hitting like 87% of the time.
Yeah, I think we have him like 230 something. I just have no idea. So I'm just not betting it, but I mean, you could probably throw together. Yeah, I don't know. I just really, I go back and forth on it so much that I don't think he's good, but that we just saw them throw the ball, 50 plus times with Joe Flacco in 2 games, like, does it even matter if he's good? I mean, didn't seem to care if it was Flacco. So I have no idea. I think that the over is probably the right lean here, just based on like volume alone.
So the other ones I was taking a look at was Lamar Jackson over 229 passing yards. Thought this was strange. Now, I know that he's kind of around this number unless he goes off against the Dolphins. That's what we've seen through 3 weeks. But there's weather concerns for this game. I understand that, but it's not affected Josh Allen's prop at all. The Bills have no secondary to speak of. And I think we lose sight of that based on what Miami wasn't able to do to them in the passing game last week. Because, look, I mean, I feel bad for Tua at this point, but they tried to take their shots, but all they did was just try to get into his face, force him out right or left, and he doesn't have the arm strength to get there. Lamar does. Lamar can go over top of this defense, no problem. Like once you get past the front 4 of the Bills at this point in time, they have absolute scrubs on defense. So it feels like this could just be like 2 big plays, one to Duvernay, one to Isaiah Likely, something like that. Now, maybe they'll want to control the game on the ground. That's where the hesitation comes in. I like that one. The other one's like Rashad Penny over 59.5 rushing yards. Love Penny this week. Ramondre Stevenson against the worst run defense in the league, 44.5 based on his workload last week. Seems pretty good. But I think the one that I'm going to circle, put out there, is the one that I just kind of identified, and I'm willing to be way wrong on this. But with the way that the Lions have played defenses so far, your wide receiver 1 essentially gets taken out of the game. Whoever they choose to identify as your wide receiver 1. They put Okudah on you, and he has been fantastic so far. We saw nothing from Jefferson. We've seen nothing from Terry McLaurin. We saw nothing from Devonta Smith in week 1. It led to this overreaction where it's like, oh my God, A.J. Brown's going to have 25 targets a game. It's like, no. Actually, they think that Devonta Smith is wide receiver 1. That's why he ended up with so many targets in that game. And if this is the case, Tyler Lockett over 62.5 receiving yards should smash. You could play him like alt line up to 100 if you wanted to. If you're right about this, because it goes the wrong way where he has none, DK has it all. But if you want to tell yourself like a same game parlay game story, it's like over 80 for Tyler Lockett receiving yards and under the 75.5 for DK, and you're off to the races.
I love the Tyler Lockett play. It was one I was bemoaning to Connor on Wednesday when it like first popped and I missed it. And it was like 57.5. And they just hung out there like 57.5 at like minus 140 forever. And then they finally took it down and moved it. Same exact thought process. It was like one of my first attacks this week. And still am on it. Still like that spot quite a bit. Gino's been pretty good, especially like from a completion percentage over expectation. Like he's taking what the defense gives him. And the Okudah stuff, Pat laid it out perfectly. I'm also kind of there on Lamar too. Like the Lamar number jumped out as like, why is that so low? I don't give 2 shits about the weather here. We talked about how the rain is not really a factor, even if it's coming down. There's wind. It's not going to be wind where, Chris Allen has done a lot of work for us around that. So it's not going to be to a point where it's problematic to react to. So I think both those looks are pretty good. Connor, any thoughts on some of the stuff Pat laid out?
No, yeah, I like the Lockett one. I was looking at some Metcalf unders for the same reason, but I hate betting against DK Metcalf, and like he's just so good that like all it takes is one catch for him to not be lined up where he could house it. So I couldn't do it, but I think the Lockett overs are a good look there. And then with Lamar, we expect the pace to be pushed. I mean, I took the over in this game. I think that this is a back and forth affair. Our Mark Andrews should have a big day too, sitting in that zone, against Buffalo. So I think it should be good.
Yeah, the Lamar thing, we talked about it last night on the game preview show. What's really different with Lamar this week compared to the last couple of weeks is Baltimore, because they're so beat up, they're going to play a ton of zone. And Lamar's really feasted the last 2 weeks against very man-heavy teams. Two of the most man-heavy looks defensively all season is in Miami and New England. So that would be the change, but it still seems so drastic to have it be down that far in the low 220s. When we think about this game environment with a total at 51.5, that, just going to have to be pushing the pace. So yeah, I have no problem with that look at all. So,
I mean, he hasn't covered this number in 2 or 3 games. Like even last week, it felt like he was having a huge game, but it was all on the ground. He had 100 yards rushing. He only had 218 in the air.
Yeah, like 120 yards and 4 touchdown passes in like halftime or something like that. So yeah, it's been a lot of scores, but not necessarily a ton of yards. Also notable, and it's probably pretty noisy because it's small sample in the season, Buffalo by far the best team at defending tight ends this season. So again, you try to look at who they played, give it some context. They were really good last year too, so that's a little bit larger of a sample. But again, Andrews is such a focal point of this offense. I have no problem thinking that he has a nice game here. But I'm going to stay in that game for my last one. As Pat mentioned, like this weather, no concerns. The game environment, no concerns. I'm taking Josh Allen over 286.5 passing yards. Looks like there's a 285 on DraftKings. I booked it at 282, but basically, if you look at any projections that we have, if you look at anything out there that you trust from a projection standpoint, he's basically like 320 to 340 in most spots. Again, there may be some concerns for some with Gabe Davis playing. I just don't really think it matters. I think this Ravens defense is a problem. It looks more like last year's unit than what I thought was coming in the season. They're dead last in passing yards allowed, in total yards per game. Success rate, they're 26th. I think success rate matters a lot early in the season as we start to build up a sample of data. EPA, DVOA, they're kind of middle of the pack, but I think success rate kind of tells a better story. It makes sense that like Miami picked them apart, right? But like last week, Mac Jones and like Devontae Parker were like pulling off 20, 25 yards at a time. Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, I don't think are 100%. They're going to play, but like with some of the injuries, Kyle Fuller's out for the year. They've added this kid, Brandon Stevens. He's 90th out of 103 PFF corners in coverage grade so far this season. That's not good. And Allen's topped this in 5 straight, dating back to last year. I think he gets there here in a big, big way. Bouncing back, Steph Diggs, Gabe Davis, whoever else is out there, Isaiah McKenzie. I think they eat here, so no problem with that. What are your thoughts, Pat?
I haven't projected at 330, so you're getting about 50 yards of value here.
Yep. See, that's also in line. Connor, I know you were leaning here.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if you took any action.
I did not take any action, but I agree. It's just so high already as is. I don't know. I mean, I'd probably almost rather just like play like a same game parlay and just like hit whatever. Josh Allen 300, Lamar 250. Like just parlay it all together and hope for the best that it, like shoots out there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about something like that because I really like the Atlanta game. I don't know who's going to win it, but I don't like people think that Cleveland has a good defense. They don't at all.
They're beat up too.
They even gave up like mid-20s points to Carolina, who was god awful. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. Like Drake London over 60 yards with Kyle Pitts over 60 yards with Nick Chubb over 95 rushing yards. Those 3 alone, that pays almost 7-1.
I get 2 others that I want to get your thoughts on. Connor and I were talking before we get started. First is a Connor Allen special. It is a something that Connor would do, not something that I would typically do because it's so volatile. But Nyheim Hines rushing yards under 12.5. He's got 11 on the season. It's ugly. I think he has 3 carries, 1 carry, 3 carries, and those are like, I would imagine what you would call like scheme breakers, because obviously, tendency breakers. He's in there. You think you're going to pass to him, so occasionally you give him a little bit of like a dive out of shotgun. So obviously 12.5 is not a high threshold. So again, like this can be busto on 1 carry, but I think he probably gets 2 carries and he's not been very efficient so far this season. So again, 11 yards on the season. I think our projection is like 4.5 What are your thoughts there, Pat?
The one thing I don't like about it is this Jonathan Taylor toe injury, which he's fine. He's going to play. But if it's a bit more substantial, then maybe we're being led to believe that maybe it's a Nyheim Hines 7 carry game if they really do want to run the ball. And Taylor still gets his like 16 to 20, whatever it is. But instead of getting 27, those extra ones end up going to Nyheim Hines. That would be my only fear about this not coming under.
That's a wet blanket that I needed for that, though, because it's so volatile that when the threshold is that low, that's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, he gets 1 to 2 carries. I feel great about it. He gets 3 to 4 carries. I don't feel so good about it. It's I don't know.
The other is Aaron Rodgers, under 31.5 pass attempts in a game that I think New England's going to try to get out of there as quick as possible by running the football. I think Green Bay likes to play slow, likes to run the football. We saw it in the game against Chicago, where Chicago ran the ball a ton and Green Bay did not have to do a lot. Rodgers had 25 pass attempts. We have, I think, a tick over. I think it's 31.5. I think we have him at like 32 and change. This is probably a nice lean. But again, I just think the way that game's going to go, probably low volume, just overall raw plays. What are your thoughts, Pat?
Do you see that Mac Jones is practicing today?
I mean, he's practicing in the sense that like he's standing on the sideline playing catch. Like it's crazy that I cannot believe that they're going to put him out there. But I don't know whether that impacts it for me.
I just feel like, I don't know. I'm with you because it does feel like the best path here for the Patriots. It's like why I like the Patriots in the points. Just take Harris, take Stevenson, run them into the ground. Yep. Try to milk this clock, limit the amount of possessions in this game, and hope to get lucky somewhere with a pick or an untimely muff punt. Like it's funny that that's where the Patriots are at right now. But when you're a big underdog in this game, likely starting Brian Hoyer, these are the things that you need to go your way. And then you have the Packers on the other side of the ball. Like, if a game is within a touchdown, they're the second slowest team in the league. And if you just take them into neutral circumstances, they're the second slowest team in the league. They don't play fast whatsoever. I mean, that's a very large contributing factor. Yep. Just the amount of bulk that you're going to get from them in general. And we know that they want to run the ball. They run every first down for no apparent reason. Never works. But that's why you're seeing these Rodgers under attempts really come through. So I I love where you're going with that.
Yeah, that feels a little bit more sustainable to me than the Nyheim Hines one. So might take a look at that after the show. So, all right, good bonus props for you guys here. We're going to get to your questions in a moment. So again, if you have anything, you're hanging out with us. Before we do so, Connor, we'd love to get your thoughts on any picks on Thrive this week. Again, Thrive with the promo code Prop Drop gets you a first deposit match instantly up to $250. There is a massive overlay in their tournament this week, and we would love to help them fill it. Connor, any looks that you have on Thrive?
Yeah, you can get a couple of good ones here that I like. Rodgers, 235.5 passing yards. I guess that's about right. Devontae Adams, 90 receiving yards. It's a little bit high. Juju Smith-Schuster, 42.5 receiving yards is about 10-ish yards off market. So I like the over on that one a good bit. Leonard Fournette, over under 1.5 total touchdowns. You can just take the under there. It's a free square. Matt Ryan, over under half an interception, I think is interesting. Tyler Lockett, we mentioned him, 5.5 receptions. Over, you can get kind of plus money, their version of that. So I think that's a pretty good look. Jonathan Taylor, too, you can get plus money on over 92.5 rushing yards. Justin Herbert, 275.5 passing yards. Justin Herbert last week had the worst on-target throw percentage in the league by 20%. He had a 37% on-target throw percentage. Right now, the worst player in the league in on-target throw percentage is Baker Mayfield at 56%. So just to show how banged up Justin Herbert was, I don't know what to do with him, but I would lean towards the under in this spot because I don't think that they're just going to sling it here.
Yeah, and Keenan Allen matters too. Obviously,
right.
His status is not looking good here too. So yeah, those are some of the ones that I like too. I think CeeDee Lamb is actually a pretty decent look. He's getting peppered with targets. It's a nice matchup against Washington. Like you said, we already highlighted Tyler Lockett. I think that's a great play there too. Aaron Jones at 47.5 rushing yards feels really light comparatively. We have him around 60. Talked about that a few moments ago, just thinking there's going to be a good amount of carries in that game too. And I think that's a nice look. Build a little tournament lineup over on Thrive. Make yourself some money just by entering the tournaments because it will for sure overlay. All right, let's get into some of the questions that you guys have so far this week. Appreciate you hanging out as always. Kevin, friend of the show, likes Mariota over 210 passing yards. Looks like that's on PointsBet. Pat, any leans on Mariota while you bring that up?
No, actually, it's funny because I like his receivers over, but I don't necessarily love his over because he really only passes to two guys. So they can both, they could both get exactly 100 yards, and he still doesn't get to that total. Now, he would pass to Patterson, he'd pass to Zacchaeus or Kaderil Hodge, whoever it may be. But I just feel like his passing tree is so limited that unless those guys go at one of those guys at least goes nuclear, it's going to be very tough for him to get there. I would lean to the over, but it's not a strong play for me.
Yeah, we're a tick under, Connor. Any thoughts?
No, I think you guys covered it. It's just kind of like a pass for me.
Yeah, we're at 205 on Mariota.
And I'm 221 on Mariota, in fairness.
Okay. Yeah, still not necessarily a 221, even like a bettable edge from an over standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, like the ones I pointed out earlier, like your Josh Allen number is like 50 yards off. Yeah. My Derrick Henry number is like 35 yards off in terms of rushing. Like those, like that's where I'm looking to hit the prop market. Like, yeah, my numbers tell me that he should hit this. I don't know what, like 57% of the time, 56% of the time. Like that's barely better than the VIG.
Yep. Let's see. Travis Etienne over receiving yards. Listen, running back receiving yards are just they're tough. What do you think, Pat?
The only one I would think about, I didn't even see what the number was, but just like logically in my mind, the one that makes the most sense to me this week is whatever over Eckler's receiving numbers are, because Herbert can't pass, as was just stated. Slater's out, and the Texans have a top 5 pass rush. So dump off City.
Yeah. Let's see. We got Etienne at 17.5 across the board. Looks like MGM is the best number for that. There has been there hasn't been a lot of sample size of Jacksonville playing from behind, but they do seem to have a fairly predictable split in terms of when James Robinson is playing and when Etienne is playing. In a spot where there are 6.5 point dogs on the road, you would think it leads to a little bit more. So I understand where Gabriel is coming from here with the question, but there's just so much volatility. We've gone down this road so many times. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't do it. I mean, I just had to, this is another guy like Edmonds. Like I just had to change my priors. Like I was just wrong. I don't know. I mean, like I'm not going to say that I'm right about everything here because this was a blatant miss. And so I'm going to just, take my L and not start chasing here with an over, on his receiving yards. Cause James Robinson looks great and he's being used in the running and receiving game plenty. So I just don't think that there's no reason for them to get Etienne involved more like as of now.
For example, by the way, on that Eckler thing, like my baseline projections have him at 5 catches for 41 yards. I think we're looking more like 7-8 catches for like 70 yards for him.
Yeah. I think that actually goes even more into the Keenan Allen thing. Like if Keenan Allen's out, it's like he becomes the safe chain mover because they're so limited. And obviously he is too. So him wanting to get the ball out early and not take those hits, I think makes a ton of sense. So
here's the problem though. They're not releasing any Austin Eckler receiving props.
They know. They will probably get him Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few things on the board I would love to get to. They have chickens, along with all the tackle props. Give me some fucking tackle props, you pussies. All right. Good one here. Connor, you've already talked about this one. Marvin Jones.
Yes.
Under 44.5 receiving yards. Javon talking about how the Eagles limit big plays. And obviously there's some questions with Zay Jones there, but what do you think about Marv?
Yeah, I like this under a lot. He's gone under this every single game, and he looks horrible. He looks old. Toughest matchup by far for the season. My only question, the only reason I'm waiting is because Zay Jones picked up an ankle injury, didn't practice yesterday, and then they said they're going to make a final decision on him for tonight. I don't think that it necessarily matters too much. I think it's still a good play. But the thing is, Marvin Jones' snaps actually went down last week. Like he was not playing as much as he normally was the previous week. So that just makes it like an even better play. Like if Zay Jones is playing, they're at full strength. I think Jones probably plays a little bit less. Like I still like the under there for him there. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I have him right around here, but he has performed below expectation on the amount of targets that he's received. so far. So my numbers are confused by that. Like, no, here's what his like historical baseline is. Why isn't he doing that anymore? And he's going to have games where he does go over this, obviously, but it's another one of those keep riding it until they adjust the number to the right side. If Zay Jones doesn't play, I would just expect an increase. Like Evan Ingram's at 27.5 receiving yards. The over of that is, I think, an even better play than either side of the Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at Evan Ingram's been involved, right? We again have to move past priors and a lot of other ways too. Like dudes out there running routes at a pretty high clip, an elite clip from a tight end standpoint. So, all right, looks like MGM is the best place to chase the under on Nico Collins. Maybe it's getting some serious juice. I'm not quite sure the timestamps here, but hey, Nico Collins might already jumped the shark here. Might be gone. Looks like Ryan Tannehill over 220.5 passing yards from Lucas here. I don't know, Pat. What are your thoughts here on Tannehill?
I mean, I went heavy over on Henry, and I really think he does smash through that number, like 100+ yards. That if that happens, it's probably pretty unlikely that both he and Tannehill go off. And it's not a game I expect to shoot out. Put it that way.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm down in this passing game. I don't love any of the pass catchers here. I think the only reason I'd be hesitant is kind of how I talked about earlier. Like, I think Henry, even though that prop now was such a low threshold, I think they might struggle a little bit and they might be forced into more passing yards. And, Tannehill can get there on garbage time. Connor, any thoughts on the Titans passing game?
No, honestly, this game is just, I think that it should be like the rushing props or nothing. I was eyeing, the only thing I was eyeing in this game would be like Colts ancillary pass catching unders, because I just don't think any of them see much work here. And that the Colts probably Jonathan Taylor has an awesome day. Did on the other side of the ball, Derrick Henry's the focal point. So it's just like a slow game with very few plays. So that was kind of my only look for that one there.
I like Colts under sacks, if that's something you can find. I see like individual or team sacks. Where the hell is that? They make sacks so hard to find.
Yeah. And some of the team sack stuff they don't post also till like Saturday night, Sunday morning too.
Yeah, like I obliterate. Like I had a lot of success on Monday night. Like everything I bet came true in that Dallas. I mean, I think a lot of people had a lot of success in that game just because anyone who ran a projection model, like, hey man, these over-unders are way off. Like they're off by like 20 yards, 5 passing attempts, and just like there's gonna be a much faster paced game that even if it's low scoring and like crappy, it's going to be a higher volume game than people think. And with the Colts stuff, I mean, they were over 2.5 sacks for Dallas. Like that's craziness. And this Colts team, they just don't get to the passer at all. Like ever.
Yeah. Nope.
I think they have 1 sack this year.
Not great. Cody agrees with our Derrick Henry love. Appreciate the love for the show. Henry continues to fall. Will continue to smash 80.5 in some spots last week, 87.5 in others. Yeah, I mean, it's wild how much they've adjusted. So makes a lot of sense. I like Pat's look there quite a bit. Let's see what else we got. Gabriel wants us to talk about the Bateman over unders. I don't know what those are. Let's see where we're at.
I will tell you, I don't like them either way. What you'll want to do is, it's almost like Connor said a little bit earlier. If you like Bateman this week, bet his like progressive over 100 yards.
Agreed.
Like I just don't see him finishing with 62.
We thought he was going to be. That's actually exactly what our projection is. We had him last year. He was like a low ADOT guy, kind of like a move the chains guy. And this year, he's like the field stretcher. It's very bizarre. Connor, I'm guessing you kind of feel the same.
Yeah, no take. Play the alts if you want it, but I think it correlates well with the Lamar passing over if that's something you're interested in. So I guess I think that there's just better ways to play it than just like the 47.5 over. You could just get some more juice to your squeeze there.
Connor, I'd love to get your thoughts. I know you took Gabe Davis earlier in the week. Questions about re-aggravating his injury. Again, he said today, if we want to buy into player speak, I'm 100% playing. It's down. I think you posted 50.5. It's 48.5. Imagine he'll get, all the horse tranquilizers and everything you could possibly, fentanyl, whatever he needs to get himself out there. What are your thoughts on 48.5 at this point?
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Davis on a bum ankle will still get to 50 yards, so I'm not too worried against this, Ravens secondary. I think he'll be fine. But at this point, obviously it sucks. We bet this on 2 days ago before he was even out of any practice. he was out there for every snap. He played the most snaps of any Bills wide receivers in like 90 plays. And then, I guess got hurt somewhere. He was one of the few guys not keeling over and nearly passed out on the field. So I thought that we were probably in the clear for this week, but I guess not. So would still lean over. But yeah, obviously the ankle is a little bit concerning.
Yeah. Ian wants to tell us that we don't need any more work from ETN. He's gone over 17.5 in all 3 games. Yes, Ian, 3 games is a very small sample. And if you look at how noisy receiving yards for running backs is statistically over the course of a season, it's just such a volatile thing. Even looking at routes run, all those different things, it's just a very, very hard thing to, put your hands on. Looks like Montgomery just got ruled out. Yeah, we would love some Khalil Herbert overs, again, depending on what that comes out at. We talked about it last night on the game preview show. The Bears suck. The offensive line is actually terrible. They're dead last by a significant margin in adjusted sack rate, but from a run blocking standpoint, they're terrific. They're like top 5 in adjusted line yards. They are, I think, first in secondary yards. Like, they're creating these big holes for big plays. I think Khalil, again, if he's not sharing, we would love Montgomery's number at, in this spot against the Giants. So again, hard to kind of say, yes, we want to look at overs when we don't have the number, because obviously that's not the right way to do it, but I'm interested in seeing what they're posted at. Same thing with like a Jamal Williams, who's, set up for a nice workload against Seattle this week.
I dispute that, by the way.
Tell me.
I don't think his role changes whatsoever.
Who's that? Williams?
Jamal Williams.
Yeah. So you think just Craig Reynolds steps into, I think I think it's probably true. We've seen it. So it's just such a good matchup still. I think even though he might not see a ton more work, it could still be a really good spot. So yeah, I'm not blindly chasing overs. We should never just think automatically I'm going to bet over because this guy's going to step into a workload. I think Khalil sees more than Jamal. And I don't know.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is kind of what I broke it down to. Like, the max amount of touches you're probably looking at for Jamal Williams. I mean, let's say an 85, 90th percentile outcome, 20 carries for him, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But if it's not Reynolds, because Reynolds is banged up, it's going to be Justin Jackson, or like they'll sign Jamar Jefferson and get him on the go. Like, it's just one of those weird things where the Lions have a very set way that they want to run their backfield, and no one person is. It would be like if Jamal Williams was out. That doesn't necessarily mean that DeAndre Swift would have 25 touches. He would have like 16. Because that's how they run their offense. The Bears, on the other hand, and maybe I'm wrong on this, maybe they'll use that random weirdo who was getting touches last week in the first half. Yeah. But like in the second half, it was all Herbert all the time when they were trying to win that game. So I could see Herbert actually having like 30 plus touches here, which is real value. Like, whatever his over under comes in at, it's going to be too low.
Yeah. I think that's fair. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, and I think we're going to probably see it. I would guess in the 60s, honestly, like low 60s is what I think we'll get.
And that's a smash over. Like, here, I originally had David Montgomery in for 50% of the workload. So, and I have Fields at 30%, but realistically, he doesn't actually run that much. So let's just put let's be conservative with Herbert for a second. Let's put at 65% of the rushing share, and we'll put that other loser at like 6% or 5%, whatever he is. What's his name? Ebner? Ebner hardly knew her? Yeah. Dave Ebner, WWF referee. So we'll even take his market share of TDs down. We'll just give, for simplicity's sake, to make this easy on ourselves, we'll just give that all to Lil Herbert and be on our way with all of this. And I'm going to run the slate 10,000 times. Super easy. And see how this works with this new projection that I have put in for Khalil Herbert, and 65% of the carries with a team with a rushing rate of around 60, that, it's going to run enough plays, and see what that kicks him out at. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Like, having the numbers come out after these simulations, less than 5 seconds for the simulations. Love that. And let's see here. Rushing attempts for the week. He comes in second now. So his baseline projection after the 10,000 sims, giving him just 65% of the rushing workload for the Bears, 20 carries, 106 yards, half a touchdown.
It's a nice little week. They're going to come out in the 60s. I agree, Connor.
Yeah.
So 63. Yeah.
That and Henry are going to be the 2 most lopsided ones for me, I think.
Yeah. And you make a great point, Pat. We have like historical reference points on Detroit because Swift misses 3-4 games a year, and we know how they handled last year with the same coaching staff. So yeah, I think there's reason to be more bullish on what we see with Herbert than what we see with with Williams with Swift out of the lineup. So
what is Jamal Williams over under?
So it's the attempts right now are 16.5, and the rushing yardage is like 62.
Oh,
okay.
posted.
So my projections have him at 15 for 62. Like that feels so trappy. The under has to hit.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to bet those overs.
The attempts unders looks interesting too, because like you said, he's not just going to like see all the carries there. And if there's any concerns about Detroit's offense like faltering a little bit here, and they get into any kind of like neutral negative game script, I don't know, could push it a little bit in the other direction. So 16.5 carries seems like a little bit rich.
Yeah. Oh, look at what happened last year.
I'll tell you that I'm fading him 100% on DraftKings, so he's destined to go off.
Yeah, we had a couple of those spots last year, 19 carries, 17 carries, 15 carries in games without Swift.
So he's right around there. Okay.
It's right around there.
Now, who did they play in the 2 games where he had all the carries?
Minnesota.
Close game that they blew at the end.
At home, and then on the road against Atlanta, 19 for 77.
And what was the score of that game?
Let me see. You don't have the score right here. Detroit 2016.
So Detroit won that game, and they were winning most.
I'm sorry, Atlanta 2016. Yep.
Atlanta 2016. So, okay, so I don't know what the flow of that game is. That just seems – I do feel like there's no St. Brown, there's no Swift. Maybe there is an over-reliance on the rushing game here. But I would be looking at the Josh Reynolds, if Chark ends up playing, if Hawkinson ends up playing, like those sorts of guys. I feel like their overs are just going to be more attainable in a game like this. And weirdly, like everyone kind of rags on Seattle for playing so slow. But a lot of that is just predicated from week 1 when they were up the entire game. They just tried to milk the rest of the game out because they knew they had nothing left. And in the rest of the game so far, the last 2 weeks, when they've been down in situations, they're not slow whatsoever. They're actually one of the faster teams out there in neutral situations. Like they're above league average in pace of play. It's just once they when you look at their 7-point lead or more stats in terms of clock management, they're the slowest team in the league.
Yep. Needed Pete Carroll to get rid of Russell Wilson for him to kind of just unleash the offense. But yeah, they're not, the last couple weeks, as you mentioned, they're not slow. So, all right, that does it for the questions. We appreciate it. Real quick, we're going to get to producer Sal's prop of the week. All right, if you're watching here on YouTube, this is our prop tool. It's tied to our projections at 4for4, which have been the best in the industry for over a decade, proven out over in the Fantasy Pros competition with John Paulson. You can get this as part of our betting subscription at 4for4. There's a deal today that expires September, gets you 25% off of any package at 4for4. So take advantage of that deal. Again, the betting sub gets you access to literally everything on the site. Highly recommend that. Looks like we have a parlay from the aforementioned Zach Wilson here. Sal is looking to just hit the overs on Wilson, over on passing yards, and he likes over half a touchdown. That is juiced at -140. Like Zach Wilson to come in and hit the ground running off of the meniscus tear with a JV style offensive line here. Connor, what are your thoughts on producer Sal's parlay?
Yeah, I can't get there. I mean, even if the volume is there, like you can't watch this game in real time. And this is like a condensed version you watch later. I don't know. I think for this one, I mean, it's probably the right side just because I think that they throw the ball more than expected. But I'm just so down on Zach Wilson. I just think he sucks. So and the matchup is not super easy. So I'm out on this. But Sal, good luck. Hopefully you win a lot of Canadian dollars. Hope it works out.
Yeah, anchoring strongly to those priors. I'm with you there, Connor. No problem there. So
until he proves me otherwise, I'm willing to fade Zach.
Yeah, Pat, you gave us your thoughts on Zach Wilson here already.
Yeah, I'm going to play every single week. I have sort of my biggest leans in terms of what the projections say. And then I usually play those all together. And my top 7 all hit last week. And I can assure you, I didn't play all 7 of them because I'm an idiot. But I went with my gut plays and I lost horribly on my gut plays and all the projection plays came through. So if that one's really going to be a 91% winner of what the numbers say, I got to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point we have more data too, and right, our projections and some of the stuff that we're doing on the back ends should get better too. So we should probably lean on them. And then confirmation bias. You were 7 for 7 last week. You got to push the edges. So good stuff. Thanks as always, Sal. Again, player prop tool on the site 4for4.com/plans. September expires on Friday. So hopefully you're watching live. You can take advantage of that in podcast form. If you miss it, DM me. We're happy to take care of you and get you that deal and go from there. So good stuff as always. Pat, where can everyone find all of your stuff?
At the PME on Twitter, the Facebooks for you olds out there, and Instagrams for you sexy ladies out there. But not really. I'm married. Still look, I suppose. Doesn't cost anything to look. But Mayo Media Network is where you want to find me for most of the stuff.
Oh, it's good. Doesn't matter where you get the appetite, Pat, as long as you eat at home, I was told. So good stuff as always for Connor and Pat. I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time.